1, 2, 3, 4. Those are numbers, but you already knew that. If you want to know what number you're going to pay each month for your car, use Kelley Blue Book My Wallet on Auto Trader. They're really good at numbers. Auto Trader.
This episode is brought to you by Starry. When you drink Starry Lemon Lime Soda, every sip is a win. Perfect for game time or anytime. It's a crisp, refreshing lemon lime soda that's caffeine-free and bursting with flavor that makes you go, ah. Starry hits different. Find it in stores or online today.
My name is Khan.
Hello and welcome to Unequal Sequel. My name is Dave and I'm one of the two hosts of this stupendous podcast.
And I'm Rich, and I'm the other host of this stupendous podcast. Oh, good word, Dave. Think of me as Superman to Dave's Lois Lane. People don't recognise me without my glasses on, and he is an intrepid reporter.
I didn't know where you were going to go with that one, so I'm very impressed.
I didn't know either until I was saying it.
The premise of Unequal Sequel is very simple. We ask our guests for their best ever sequel, worst ever sequel, and finally their dream sequel.
And of course, we quite often drift off course and just have some good chats about movies in general.
We should also point out we do drop some spoilers for the movies we talk about. So if we mention a movie you haven't seen and you don't want to know about, just skip that little bit, but make sure you listen to the rest of the episode. Okay, cool. On today's episode, we are joined by Jack Chambers from the Sequelisers.
Jack is a brilliant podcaster, and this is kind of rounds off our triple-part Sequelisers specials. We love those guys. They're awesome. They're part of our little pod family of sequelness.
Sequelness. Lovely. We're very excited to sit down and chat with Jack. All things sequels with him.
These are Jack Chambers' Unequal Sequels. Enjoy.
What is the first sequel that you can remember getting excited about?
Ooh, that would be, weirdly enough, something we've sequelised on the show, would be Lion King 2.
Is that Simba's Pride? It
is Simba's Pride, yeah.
Oh.
I absolutely love The Lion King. It's like one of my favourite childhood movies. And that came out, I'm born in 1990, so I'd have been 4 or 5 when that came out. And then the second one, it was like a birthday party and it had just come out. And we were like, oh my God, we're going to go to the cinema on my friend's birthday. It was like the day it came out, opening day. Lion King 2. Oh my God, what could be better than the sequel to the best cartoon I've ever seen in my life? And I'm an 8-year-old kid. I'm just loving life. And I like it. It was fine. Yeah, it was. I still stand by Lion King 2 is not that bad. And I said that on our show as well, a show entirely about bad sequels. I said, it's not that bad.
I didn't think this had a cinema release. I thought it was a straight-to-video VHS sequel.
I don't think it was a cinema thing. I think we went to my friend's house and we watched it on like a big screen, like birthday party style, kind of thing. I don't think it was in an actual like proper theatre, but it felt like it when I was a kid. Or like there was like a row of us on the sofa and then a row of us in front of us on the floor, that kind of thing. We're all cross-legged, like, oh, the biggest screen you've ever seen in a home. That kind of my rich, like the rich kid's birthday round the corner who had the big massive screen and the lovely sofa, that kind of stuff.
I don't think I've ever seen Lion King 2.
I haven't either. I've seen 1.5.
Oh, yeah.
1.5?
Yeah, 1.5.
There's Lion King 1.5.
There's 1.5 from 2004, I want to say, like 10 years later.
Yeah.
Okay.
And obviously 3 is Timon and Pumbaa, the spin-off thing there. So it's like, sure, whatever.
So what happens in 2?
There, it is Simba's kid kind of looks like Scar, and he's all like evil looking, basically.
Right.
Is that right? I think I've got that right. No. It's his daughter. It's Simba and Nala's daughter meets this kid who looks like Scar. That's what it is.
Okay.
And
Scar's love child.
he's like outcast and basically kind of like, well, he looks like Scar, so he must be evil. And the best song in that whole thing is about him. And the lyrics are like, deception, disgrace, evil is clear as the scar on his face. And it's like the cheesiest, crappiest lyrics you've ever heard. But 8-year-old Jack was like, this is the best. This is a worthy sequel to what I consider one of the greatest films ever made as an 8-year-old. I'm like, yes. And I think, eventually it all works out, and it's basically Romeo and Juliet with lions in the same way that the first one is... Oh, what's the first one based on? Hamlet, thank you. Yeah, the first one's Hamlet. This is Romeo and Juliet. And then the third one, Timon and Pumbaa, of course. The famous
Do the voices
Shakespeare.
return? Because they're always different on the sequel.
Yeah, so Broderick is back as
Wicked.
adult Simba. He's not in it that much.
Oh.
And Jason Marsden plays Kovu, and he is of no note whatsoever. I thought, James Marsden. Nope, different guy. Definitely not Cyclops. Who else have we got? Although Timon and Pumbaa are back, I believe, and you've got people like James Earl Jones shows up as a flashback of Mufasa.
Wow.
And Jeremy Irons doesn't come back as a flashback of Scar. It's actually Jim Cummings, because Jim Cummings was the ADR guy for Jeremy Irons when he blew out his voice. Do you know that story?
No.
Oh, Jeremy Irons blew out his voice on "Be Prepared." On that big note, he blew out his voice, and Jim Cummings finishes the rest of the song for him.
Wow.
And he did some ADR stuff to kind of cover it, because Jim Cummings is like legendary voice actor. I'm a voice actor nerd, by the way, listeners of Unequal Sequel. I apologize in advance for my nerdery. But Jim Cummings kind of did a bunch of cover for it, basically, and was like, cool, yeah, a gig's a gig. In the same way that Tom Hanks's younger brother does all the like voices of Woody in all the video games and toys and stuff. It's like, we can't afford Tom Hanks. And Tom's like, have my brother. He sounds basically like me. He needs a job. Get off the sofa, Dave Hanks, or whatever the hell your name is. But yeah, Lion King 2, I loved it as an 8-year-old, and I somewhat stand by it as a now 31-year-old. So
my brother, who when I said I was doing this podcast and he listened, he picked Lion King 2 as his worst ever sequel.
Oh, wow. Me and your brother need to have words, Dave.
And he's got children, Jack, so he's had to watch it with them. Probably more than once.
I've avoided that, thankfully.
Did he watch it when it came out and then rewatched it with his kids? Or has he only seen it with his
Only
kids?
with the kids, recently. Probably with Disney Plus, if I had to guess.
That's probably why then. I think I like it because of the nostalgia of me being an 8-year-old. I've definitely got the rose-tinted glasses of young Jack there. But I think if I went into it now in 2021, I'd be like, no, thank you. I don't need this in my life. I got that. That's fair. I'll let him off. We don't need to have words.
So what is your best ever sequel?
Best ever sequel. I'm going with something I think is part of one of the best modern trilogies in cinema, and I think is grossly underrated and underappreciated by many, many people.
Oh, yes.
It is the second part in the trilogy. It is 2014's Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, directed by Matt Reeves. And I think this film is basically a masterpiece. I think this whole trilogy is brilliant, and I think it in a kind of, it's The Empire Strikes Back, it's The Two Towers, it's the Wrath of Khan, to go back to my fellow sequelizer Matt's kind of thing. It's such an amazing expansion on what the kind of foundation they put down with Rise. And I like Rise, it's decent enough. Like, I've got no big problems with it, but it didn't really blow my socks off. James Franco's fine. Draco Malfoy's fine. Like, Caesar has that no moment, and you're like, oh yeah, this is cool. But then it kind of stops. You're like, okay, this is kind of, now we get to the cool Planet of the Apes stuff. And the way they build these characters, you cry over animated apes in this movie.
It's amazing.
It's brilliant. Toby Kebbell's performance, because everybody knows Andy Serkis, the master, one of the absolute pioneers in motion capture, and, I think deserves multiple Oscars for his various performances. Probably should have got one for Gollum.
Yep.
Probably should have got one for Caesar.
Holla.
Andy Serkis, underappreciated. Now, a director in his own right as well, which is weird. But yeah, I think Toby Kebbell as the kind of villainous Cobra, because he's such an interesting villain, because you can also see his point of view. And I think that's so key to so many great villains throughout fiction, whether that's films or books or comics or video games or whatever you're talking about. If there is a villain you can believe in and go, you know what, actually, they have a point. they're going about it the wrong way, and the end game is genocide or murder or whatever it is, like that kind of thing. But the actual message and their beliefs and stuff, you can actually kind of get behind it. I'm like, I care about the interpersonal battles of these animated apes, and you completely forget that they're animated as well. There's an amazing moment. There's this close-up on the orangutan's face.
Yes.
And it's the skin texture and the hair and stuff. I'm like, did they use a real? And they were like, no real apes were used in this film at all. It is 100% motion capture.
I watched
for every
it today, and exactly that scene. I watched it in 4K, and I was like, watched it, and I was like, that is amazing. That's like, I can't believe that's animated. It's incredible.
And it's 7 years old.
Exactly the shot that you mean. I know.
Yeah,
it's mad, isn't it? 7 years ago they were making that. And there's absolutely no forgiveness for Wonder Woman 84 if they could make that 7 years ago.
Don't get me started on DC Extended Universe stuff. We will be here all night. the less I say about Zack
even the opening shot when you first see that bit, just of his eyes.
Oh yeah, which is the famous poster as well. It was literally just his eyes with the war paint down the front of his face. I was like, just sees his eyes, because that the shot from the first one, the no moment that zooms in on his face, and you're like, oh my god, he's so expressive and so dynamic, and Serkis's performance is so good. Yeah, Caesar becomes this like one of my all-time favorite protagonists in cinema, because he goes through such a journey of, you know, his tortured origin story, you know, lab ape and all this kind of stuff, building a family, building a community, actually wanting, at the end of the day, what's best for the planet, because humans are bad for the planet, ladies and gentlemen. I hate to be the one to break it to you, but we've done some terrible things to these planets, and maybe we need to back off on a lot of that stuff. And yeah, the apes are like just hanging out in trees and just like chilling. I'm like, good idea. That's probably better for the planet.
It is another one of those movies, a bit like Starship Troopers, where you kind of get to the end and go, hang on a minute. Are we the baddies?
It's the Mitchell and Webb sketch. Yeah. We've got skulls on our caps. Are we the baddies? Yeah, exactly. I mean, we talked about Starship Troopers not too long ago on Sequelisers, because we fixed the second one because it's a big pile of poop.
Oh, it is.
And yeah, the fact that so many people misunderstand the first Starship Troopers movie and are just like, oh, it's just schlocky sci-fi. It's like, what? Neil Patrick Harris is a space Nazi. What are you talking about? It's so clearly satire. Yeah. It's like Orwellian levels of like political commentary and satire and stuff. Like, this is 1984 in space with bugs. Like, why don't you understand this? And people were like, no. And the people did the same thing for the Apes trilogy. It's like, it's just a bunch of monkeys with guns on horses and stuff. I'm like, yeah, that sounds amazing. Also, it's really cool, and all the politics is great, and into the personal stuff is brilliant as well. Like, absolutely. There's so much good stuff here.
And the really good thing I like about it is that the humans are kind of like interchangeable, essentially. Is that in no sense do you miss James Franco from the first one, or need him in this movie. I know there's
I don't think I've ever missed James Franco ever, to be fair.
No, that's probably true. But yeah, there's just a tiny little snippet of him, isn't there, in this movie? But actually, you don't need the people. The people aren't the continuity. You know, there's none of that needs to run through the trilogy. It's the apes, and that's a different kind of, you know, that's a different way of looking at it, isn't it? It's a different kind of.
I like how they do that. Like each
me too.
It's like different chapters, and they're
definitely
different stories. And this is also one of those films that is better than the original. Rich, that we
should have put that in our list. Damn it!
Yeah,
you guys missed out, man. Yeah,
we did.
Top 10 best sequels better than the original. How dare you forget?
Well, I've only seen it once until today, and I kind of forgot how good it was. And it is great. So thanks for making me watch it again.
Have you both seen War of the Planet of the Apes, the finale of the trilogy?
Yes, and I can't remember anything about it.
It is a bit more forgettable than Dawn, but I think it's still good in its own right. I think, unfortunately, Woody Harrelson has fairly big shoes to fill following Gary Oldman's performance in this second movie.
Yeah, it's quite
and
subtle.
Woody Harrelson does the kind of like, I'm a bit mad, I'm Woody Harrelson doing a bad guy kind of thing, which I'm very worried he's going to do as Cletus Cassidy in Carnage, because that's what Woody Harrelson does when he plays a bad guy. He goes full wacky, mental.
He goes Marlon Brando in Apocalypse Now.
He does. He does.
That might work for Carnage though, because Carnage is kind of over the top crazy.
I have no hope for that. I'm not gonna lie. I hated the first one, so you know.
Oh really? I really loved it. I think it's one of those Marmitey films, isn't it? That people.
I
hate
don't
it or
like
love it.
Tom Hardy very much, and him doing silly voices all the time drives me nuts. Whereas like something I might touch on later on, depending on what the questions are that you ask me. His Bane voice has just driven me insane over the years. The amount of times it was just parroted by literally everyone. And every performance he does is like, oh, what silly voice is he going to do today? Like, cool, okay. I think that's why he's so good in Mad Max Fury Road as well, because he says like 6 words. I'm like,
he just grunts.
Leave it there, Tom. It's fine. Yeah.
I mean, if you've not seen him in Peaky Blinders, don't watch it because you'll really hate it. He's full on silly voice mode in that.
Yeah. And I think like Gary Oldman is he plays an interesting character, Dreyfus, the like military commander guy. And again, you can kind of see he's a lot nastier than Koba is. Like he's pretty definitively a bad person, but again you can kind of see his more kind of militaristic, I look after my own people, you know, humans I'm on team human basically, which I think if this thing actually happened, I think is how a lot of people would go with the way, you know, politics has been going in the UK and the US and Brazil and Germany and parts of Europe and all that kind of stuff. We're getting this more kind of like isolationist, you know, us leaving the EU, we're saying like, no, we're looking after us, we're looking after the British and all this kind of stuff. And he plays into that mentality of those people. And, you know, this is pre-Brexit, this is pre-Trump, like all that kind of stuff. But he is this like fanatical, you know, look after our community and screw everyone else kind of mentality that has worked for hundreds of years and will continue to work for hundreds of years in convincing people to join your cause and fight things you probably shouldn't be fighting in and all that kind of stuff. He does a brilliant job, and Gary Oldman is an all-time great. Like, he is unbelievably good in so many different roles, and he's so diverse and weird, and unbelievable performances from him. And I think the fact that you mentioned like the humans kind of almost like disappear into the background. Jason Clarke is like, yeah, he's fine. Like, he's just a believable bloke, I guess.
Yeah.
Like,
it's very subtle. Most of the human characters, they let the monkeys do the talking.
They're apes, Dave, not monkeys.
Oh, come on,
yeah,
Rich.
that is offensive.
That's prejudice, man.
Yeah.
When you first went and saw this, were you expecting it to be any good, or were you worried about it?
I like some of the older Apes movies, so I was like, okay, cool. And like I said, I liked Rise, so I was like, yeah, cool, okay, I'm up for this. And I think I love it so much because it exceeded my like okay expectations, if that makes sense. I didn't go in with like, oh my god, it's gonna be amazing, or oh god, another Apes movie, whatever. I was somewhere in the middle of like, I enjoyed the first one, let's give it a go, and it blew those expectations out of the water, and I was like, okay, this is something special. Now they, you know, Matt Reeves in particular, like, is crafting something spectacular, and Serkis in his development as a performer, as Caesar, as he becomes, for want of a better phrase, kind of derogatorily, more human as the series goes on, and he stands more upright and projects his voice, and his enunciation gets clearer, and all these beautiful little touches that Serkis adds. It's just like, oh, so good. So good. I
really liked Rise. I felt I was like on my own almost a little bit when Rise of the Planet of the Apes came out, because I think lots of people didn't like it, because I think it's a bit slow, isn't it? It takes a little while to kind of get going, and it's a bit kind of, you have to think about it a bit more, and I think it put a lot of people off. But I remember I'm thinking, am I the only person who loves this movie? Like, is it just me on my own? But I'm so glad that other people love the trilogy, because I think it's so underrated.
When you say there's a new Planet of the Apes movie coming out, you probably thought new Planet of the Apes movie coming out, so you actually see the Planet of the Apes. And in Rise, you get none of that. And then in this one, you get a bit more, but it's, I don't know, I think this film gets better more times you watch it, to be honest. I enjoyed it a lot more watching it today than I did when I originally watched it. It looks amazing, like the set designs and the score.
Have you seen any of the behind the scenes stuff of how they did the motion capture. So it was like one of the first times they've ever done full-scale motion capture out, for want of a phrase, in the wild, like out
Really?
in forests and stuff. They are really those guys running around in those suits, and they're just amazing lighting rigs and stuff that are just perfectly recapturing all of that kind of stuff. And I think it was pretty revolutionary to do that as Gollum, in the 13, nearly 15 years before this, in the late 90s and early 2000s. And he was there usually on a set, and there were a couple of bits where he's, roaming around a bit further outside and all that kind of stuff. But usually Gollum stuff was fairly isolated. It would be with him and Sam. But you have, a dozen apes running around, climbing on a horse. There's an explosion over there. There's gunfire over here. There's humans running in front of the camera. All this kind of stuff that makes that shot so much more complicated. And as a person who knows very little about visual effects apart from what I've read and watched, basically, it's like that blows my mind that it is just so convincing and so believable.
The shot where they're on top of the tank and it's slowly rotating and all the explosions are going on and the fighting on the monkey apes.
Yeah. That fight between Cobra and Caesar on the tower, it's incredible.
So good.
As me saying the other day, Dave, that I don't think I like action anymore. I'm growing out of action. And I watched that then, I was like, nope, back in it.
Yeah. The collapsing tower bit it's all the fire and stuff, and often like literal smoke and fire and stuff is used in these big kind of, speaking of Wonder Woman, big CGI smudge fests of just like, it's a big CGI blob punching another big CGI blob, and there's loads of smoke and fire, so you don't notice that it's a bit janky and all this kind of stuff. And they're like, no, we've got close-ups of these apes as they're fighting,
and you're seeing
like
you believe it.
You 100% believe it.
I totally forgot I was not watching, CGI. I was so involved.
How do they train these apes? This is incredible.
It is incredible. It just shows how good cinema is. I loved it.
Yeah.
Maybe I just love Planet of the Apes because I love the original movies, and I even like the Tim Burton one that everyone hated.
Hold on, Rich. Hold on.
I don't associate with that, Jack. Just that is not unequal sequel.
I'm gonna hang up right now. Neither Sequelisers nor Unequal Sequel endorse the message.
No way, Rich. It's toilet.
Like I said, I'm the only person in the world that liked it, apart from Tim Burton.
Yeah, Tim Burton doesn't like it either, and neither does Mark Wahlberg. So you're on your own there, mate.
It has good costumes.
The costumes are really good, apart from Helena Bonham Carter's, which is rubbish. Yeah, all the others are good. But I thought it was all right.
No, it's not all right, mate. It's not at all. It's really not. I don't understand how you can watch that film and be like, it's fine. Especially, as you said, I'm a fan of the old Planet of the Apes movies.
Yeah, true. Yeah,
I don't understand how you can like the 70s stuff and all that kind of stuff. And then
I think as I watched the 2001 one first in the cinema and then went back and watched the 70s ones after.
That explains everything.
You're a Robin.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, sorry. I didn't say I knew what I was talking about, Dave. You didn't get me on this podcast because I know
That's
anything.
True. So when we shouldn't go down this, but Rich, when you first watched the Planet of the Apes, the original one, did you already know the twist? Had the Simpsons already ruined it for you?
Yeah, I knew the twist.
And that's the joke on our show as well.
Yeah,
the
I knew that
Simpsons
bit.
ruined every possible. The Simpsons ruined every possible pop culture reference for me for the last 30 years.
I even had it on DVD, the original Burton one. I even went out and bought it because I liked it.
Oh, Jesus, Rich.
I know. Hey,
you were lucky.
Stinker, right?
You were lucky you were on our live stream before this because I wouldn't let you on now. Jesus Christ, this bridge is burnt.
I don't like it. Can we go back to talking about a good film?
Yes, please. I don't get to do that often on our show, so it's a nice treat.
What's your favourite scene? What's the one that makes you really love Dawn of the Planet of the Apes?
I think that fight between Cobra and Caesar. I think because it's the two of them in that tower and it feels so personal, and that Cobra feels betrayed by Caesar and Caesar feels betrayed by Cobra, and it's just this, not mano a mano, apo, I don't know what ape is in Spanish, one-on-one battle, just this, and you have all the, like you said, you have all the explosions and big action stuff, and there's the riding horses and shooting guns and tanks and stuff, that's great, but that personal moment, it's Luke versus Vader. It's that final one-on-one. The big battles are happening all around them, and you're emotionally invested in that moment, and it's just brilliant. It's so good.
Yeah. Would you have liked to seen a sequel follow the humans, like Jason Clarke character, was thinking this today while watching it. You had no interest to see what happened to them.
Jason Clarke is background in this, but he's fine. I think the best thing I can say about him, I'm stealing a line. I can't remember what I was listening to. I listened to a podcast earlier today about it, and they were saying like, it was a YouTube video. It was Chris Stuckman's review of it on YouTube, and he said like, the best thing I can say about Jason Clarke is that he just feels natural in this film.
Yeah.
Like he just feels like, he's just a bloke. It's like, yeah, cool, okay, yeah.
He
doesn't get in the way
confused.
of the end of stuff. Yeah, exactly. He doesn't get in the way of any of the stuff. He doesn't try and steal the scene from Caesar. It is Caesar's film, and you could really, really run into trouble of it quickly going off and being like, it's the human film. Oh, by the way, there's some apes in the background and blah, 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 blah. But the fact that it is able to focus on that, I think, is what makes it special and makes it feel different, because the other apes films do kind of focus on the humans, and Charlton Heston is kind of there and being the main character and stuff. And the fact that this is from the other perspective is, I think, what makes it so special. And the fact that all the main characters essentially are motion captured is madness and just speaks to the magic of it, I think.
I agree with you. And it's Matt Reeves, and makes me so excited for Batman now.
This episode is brought to you by Tinder. Cuffing season is in full effect, which makes Tinder the place to be right now. There's a new wave of folks coming back to the app ready to find love, fun, or just a new friend. And if you're worried about never meeting up with your matches IRL, don't be. 1.5 million Tinder users go on dates in person every week. Explore all of the possibilities for yourself. Tinder. It starts with a swipe. Download Tinder today.
What is the most disappointing sequel you've ever experienced? What's the experience just makes you go, oh?
I really, really tossed up between this, because there's two things that really stick out in my mind. And one I hinted at earlier is The Dark Knight Rises, because I hate that movie. I think there are so many things wrong with that film after how amazing Batman Begins and how incredible The Dark Knight is. That is just some mediocre bullshit. And I'm like, okay, we're ending. Okay, he's going to a restaurant and there's Michael Caine and Tom Hardy's just weird. All the the ADR in that film, the way Bane's voice sounds just throws me off. You can hear it's Tom Hardy in a vocal booth, like clear as crystal. Even because I don't know if you remember when the original trailer came out, like the first 10 minutes or whatever it was that opening plane scene with Aidan Gillen and Tom Hardy and the fire rises, brother, and all that kind of stuff. And the fact that Christopher Nolan actually blew up those planes is amazing. Christopher Nolan, that is so Christopher Nolan. But nobody can understand a word Bane was saying. Yep, brilliant. That's you got 2.5 hours of this, so have fun. I'm like, no, you need to change that. It's like, okay, right. Get Tom to go and stand in a vocal booth for an hour and just re-record all of the lines. So it's him with a mask on and a hood over his head, and he's like, well, that would be extremely painful for you. Why are you crystal clear now? This is when he should be muffled. This doesn't make any sense. And it's tiny little things like that just keep adding up and adding up and adding up. And I saw it midnight release. That's how excited I was. And I was 4 o'clock in the morning. I was exhausted.
Oh my God.
And I was like, I'm done. I don't think I ever want to see another Batman film again. I was like, God, I'm just drained. I just don't care about anything anymore. It's just so disappointing. And yeah, I've ranted about that film plenty of times on our show. We fixed it and we did a commentary for it where I go off on multiple rants. So I won't do another one here. But yeah, I hate The Dark Knight Rises. Come at me, listeners.
I thought in the screen test, everyone complained they couldn't hear what Tom Hardy was saying and they couldn't see what anyone was doing. So hence why it was a lot lighter than all the other bands, and yeah, hence the re-recording of the that is exactly right. Yeah,
and it is disappointing.
People really like it though. I have had quite a few arguments with people about how much I dislike, because I think most people don't dislike it as much as I do. In their defense, most people as you just said, Dave, it's not as good as The Dark Knight, which is an Oscar-winning, all-time great superhero movie, and I think Batman Begins is just below that. I think Batman Begins is underrated in the shadow of The Dark Knight. I think they're both incredible. And then Dark Knight Rises is fine for most people. It's it was good. Christian Bale's still Christian Bale, and there's Bane and Tom Hardy's good and stuff. And I'm like, yeah. And there's also the Talia al Ghul stuff that makes no sense whatsoever.
Nope.
And a bunch of other stuff that's not how nuclear bombs work. I have a physics degree. That is not how nuclear bombs, or how I am the one physicist in the world that can fix this bomb. No, you're not. That's not how engineering works. That's not how physicists work. If you had just invented this thing, you would be winning Nobel Prizes and blah, 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 and all this kind of stuff. Like, no. And you were the only person who could do this? Yep, that's me. Dead. Like, cool, problem solved. Like, nope. There's probably like dozens of people that could come in and probably work that out. Go and get them right now. What are you doing? Bane's plan makes no goddamn sense. Drives me mental. Can you tell I'm fired up?
I love the thought of you coming out at 4:00 in the morning, so disappointed. Did you drag friends to go and see it as well?
So interestingly enough, this was my first long-term relationship, like all the way through university and stuff. I moved across the country. I'm in Norwich at the moment, where I'm from originally. I moved down to Exeter in Devon. So
wow.
UK listeners, you probably know where that is. International listeners, that's like 250 miles southwest of where I am, which is in English terms, that's really far. I know that's next door neighbours for you Americans and Canadians out there, but for us, that's really far. It's a 8-hour journey, basically. So, yeah, I had moved down there and all this kind of stuff, and that would have been my I was there for about a year or so before my life came crashing down. I lost my job and my girlfriend within like 2 days of each other. It was the darkest timeline, should we say. I'm fine now, thankfully.
Oh, good.
It was just 10 years ago. But, and I think that was the same week I saw Dark Knight Rises.
Oh, not a good week.
Oh, no.
This perfect amalgamation of all the terrible things that could happen to me, like fresh out of university, all this kind of stuff. Like, I'm looking forward to life out in the big wide world. What could possibly go wrong? It's like, Batman's terrible and my life is crumbling around me.
You're just holding on to Batman. At least Batman's going to be good.
I think I did. Genuinely, I think I did. It was one of those like, my job's crap and I can tell something's up with, my relationship at the time. Like, thank God I've got that, I've still got those tickets booked for the midnight release. Thank God I've got something to look forward to. And I shouldn't be laughing, but I am. I was crying. You have to laugh or you'll cry.
I really sympathise. I was in a very similar position when I watched the last episode of Lost.
Oh, interesting.
I watched it at like 3:00 in the morning, like the edited release, and oh my God, the waves of disappointment when I think about it now, they just wash over me.
When good old Christian Shepherd helps them out of limbo.
I haven't seen it yet.
Have you never seen the last episode of Lost,
Nope.
Dave? Don't.
That is a 15-year-old spoiler, Dave. I mean, come on.
We're allowed to spoil things that are more than 10 years old, Dave. Come on.
That is the rule.
Don't worry, I won't spoil it for you.
I don't know why I'm still hanging on to it.
Utter bollocks.
I'm convinced one day I'm going to watch them. Me and my missus bought the first 2 series at one point to watch them.
Watch the first 2 series and don't watch any more.
The last episode was May 2010. There's 6 seasons, and it's just over 10 years old, so I'm safe. Thank God for that.
Okay.
It started in 2005, 2006, but yeah, May 23rd, 2010 was the last episode.
Oh, amazing.
I like Lost a lot, and I binge watched it at university.
Yeah,
I love
it. Big at university.
And absolutely loved it. And then it just goes off the rails and gets silly and does a bunch of nonsense because Lindelof and the team didn't know what they were doing. And Abrams, as Abrams does, is like, here's a cool setup. Now it's your problem. Like, what do you mean it's our problem? Well, there's a hatch. What are you going to do with that? Oh, by the way, smoke monsters, polar bears.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What the fuck are we supposed to do with this? Well, as long as you don't write it week to week and just make it up as you go along, you'll be fine.
Oh, that's what we did.
I mean, we did that for the next 4 years, but fine. Oh, shit.
And at the end, did anyone notice? Yes, they did.
Yeah, everyone did.
Oh, God. Where those, again, there are characters that die and then come back and then were like main characters for an episode and then they had a big falling out, so they die again and you're like... Wait, what? What the hell is going on here? Kids that just disappear into the night and it's like, nope, never spoken of again.
Yeah.
Okay,
just gone.
cool.
My friend has this running joke that because after I'd watched that final episode of Lost, I just posted on Facebook, "Fuck you, J.J. Abrams, fuck you." And every year, my friend posts it at me when it comes up in the Facebook memories. Like, oh, it's that time of year again. The biggest disappointment of my whole life.
And now we get to do it all over again because of Rise of Skywalker. Yeah.
And now we got you riled up. Let's ask the next question, which is always my most enjoyable one. What is the worst sequel that you've ever watched?
Speaking of J.J. Abrams. Excellent segue, Dave.
Thank
Excellent. Immaculate. From one podcaster to another. Chef's kiss.
I have my moment.
I pride myself on my utterly terrible segues on our show, so that was perfection. I'm going back 1 year to 2013 to talk about Star Trek Into Darkness. Because again, I hate this movie. It could have. It's the same thing as Dark Knight Rises, but worse. Because I think the 2009 Star Trek film by J.J. Abrams sets up so much cool stuff. And I'm like, cool,
Great.
This is a modern Star Trek, essentially what Discovery is doing now, because I'm enjoying Discovery. It's a bit up and down, but you know what I mean. I grew up as a Trekkie because my dad is a huge Trekkie, so I grew up watching Next Generation. Deep Space Nine is my favorite. Voyager. I even watched Enterprise. Yeah, I'm one of those people. My dad is an Enterprise defender. I can't agree with that, but I've seen it all, basically. And I was like, oh my God, me and my dad are going to go and see a Star Trek film at the cinema together. We haven't done that since, Insurrection or Nemesis, or whatever, the terrible ones. I think it was Nemesis before this. I was like, okay. We loved it. I was like, okay, it's not the old Star Trek that we knew, but it's something a bit different, something a bit modern. It was like my love of Star Wars and my dad's love of Star Trek kind of combining into this modern sci-fi franchise and stuff. I'm like,
It's a perfect way to explain it.
cool. Yeah, okay, I'm down for this. Oh, they're going to do a trilogy. They're going to do a sequel. Cool, okay. I wonder what they're going to adapt. I wonder what, are they going to do more original stuff? Are they going to do, a particular spin-off of the classic thing of, take one of the TV episodes and spin it off and make the character bigger and all this kind of stuff that you can do with these remakes and reboots that we've seen over the last few decades. John Harrison. Who the fuck is John Harrison? He's obviously Khan, isn't he? Because you only get Benedict Cumberbatch to be John Harrison. And remember all the fan theories of I think you'll find in the original series, episode 64, there's a deleted scene and there's a character called John Harrison in that. And he was the brother of some other guy and he's going to be the big bad in this. I'm like, no, he's not. It's Khan. Are you mental? And everybody who is even vaguely familiar with Star Trek knew it was going to be Khan.
Yeah.
Absolutely everybody. And to counteract my favourite scene in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, the moment where he does the whole Khan reveal is just the worst. Because he's just doing it for the audience.
Yeah, there's no point to it.
The people in front of him, the characters in that world, he could be going, I am a floobily bloobily. Yeah. And like, cool, I don't know what that is. Why are you saying that with such importance and gravitas?
They should
That
have
doesn't mean anything.
He's this loser.
They absolutely. If they had subverted it and undermined it and just been like, right, okay, cool, you're still locked up, tough. And then Spock goes, he was our greatest adversary. Also, was he? He was. He's a great villain, but other people destroyed the Enterprise and killed a bunch of people and committed genocide. There are nastier, more successful villains in the Star Trek pantheon than Khan. He's arguably the best villain because he's the most complete and his performance is so good, and Wrath of Khan is such a fantastic film, as my co-sequelizer Matt mentioned on his episode, and how much he's a Trekkie nerd and all that kind of stuff. But they get it so wrong in Into Darkness. I feel like at every possible turn, it's okay, cool, yeah, we're doing this, and this is an interesting twist on Khan. Wait, why is RoboCop here? What the fuck is this? What?
I love that too. I was
You're okay,
RoboCop's
cool.
The commandery dude?
Wait, he's exploding RoboCop's head with his bare... What is going on? And why are we overly sexualizing his daughter. It's so weird.
Oh, that was weird. Yeah.
I felt so sorry for Alice Eve, who was like really excited to be part of the franchise and all this kind of stuff. And they're like, "Cool, stand over there and get changed." And like, for God, this is supposed to be modern Star Trek. We're supposed to be like getting away from the whole Kirk as a big sexist nightmare in the 60s kind of thing. Like, this is supposed to be progressive, and the whole point of Star Trek is it's supposed to be progressive and interesting and intellectually engaging and political and all this kind of stuff. And they were just like, nope, it's badly done, Khan, and shiny lights and boobs and stuff. And you're like, oh, you just turned it into generic sci-fi action.
Just like Batman and Robin, we're all allowed to hate this movie because J.J. Abrams has said it's a bad movie. He didn't make the movie he wanted to make. He essentially let loads of his friends write different scenes and then tried to paste them all together. Is basically what he said in his interview. It's basically a collection of scenes he thought were good and thought he could make a narrative story out of that, which he clearly couldn't.
To go back to Lindelof, Damon Lindelof, who also wrote this movie, also responsible for a lot of Lost as well. I've got a little quote from him here. Khan was considered a character they needed to use at some point, given that he was such an intense gravity in the Trek universe, we would likely have expended more energy not putting him in the movie than the other way around. No, that's not how that works. Just because it's Star Trek 2 doesn't mean you have to do Star Trek 2, you fucking hack. That is not how originality and writing works. And apparently, so J.J. Abrams was like, I don't do sequels, guys, come on. Because J.J. Abrams famously does not do sequels. He never wants to. He does the thing, like I said, about Lost, where he sets up the thing and is like, here's the idea, here's the mystery box. Somebody else sort it out. Not my problem now. He did it with Force Awakens. He did it with Lost. He's barely finished a project in his entire career. It's fascinating to see how successful he is without ever actually finishing a story he's created. And then they were like, cool, okay. Are we going to do Khan then? Are you going to direct? He's like, no, that's fine. Okay, cool. And eventually, apparently, they had a working script, and then they worked Khan into it later on. It was originally going to be Peter Weller character, the Commander Marcus as the main character, and then kind of a bit more of a inter-Starfleet kind of battle between commanders and all this kind of stuff. I was like, okay, cool. And then Benicio del Toro was rumored to have been cast and stuff. I was like, okay. I can see him as a Khan. I can see where they're going with the Star Trek 2. They're getting a Hispanic actor in. Like, this all makes sense. It's all adding up now. Nope. Okay, right. Then no Benicio del Toro. So, like, if you're going to get somebody who would, like, epitomize Ricardo Montalban's original performance, who, by the way, is Mexican, Ricardo Montalban, who played the original Khan. And Khan is, well, he's genetically enhanced, but he's originally Indian-ish in a kind of, he's a super genetic, all this kind of stuff. Basically, he's not Benedict fucking Cumberbatch. He's not the whitest man on the planet, which is what Benedict Cumberbatch is. By his name and face alone, Benedict Cumberbatch should not be playing Khan. And so much of the other cast is so good. I think Chris Pine is fantastic. I particularly think Zoe Saldana and Zachary Quinto are brilliant. I'm a huge fan of Carl Urban. Simon Pegg, he's great in it as well. It's like so many good little things. The late great Anton Yelchin, man, I'm so gutted we lost Anton when he was so young as well. Like, that really broke my heart when he passed away a few years ago. It's like, he was going to do another Star, and he said Star Wars. See, Abrams, damn you. He was going to do another Star Trek thing and all this kind of stuff. Like, such good casting. I can really, after they set that up with their original film, they can really go somewhere with this cast. And they did the whole, like, to boldly go where no one can go before. The Enterprise is off on its mission. Like,
and it barely went anywhere.
Yeah. And Khan's motivation in that film is like, I want my people back. And they're like, cool, we're going to kill all your people. Like, wait, what? Are we the baddies now? Like, what is going on? Like, he's like, if you just give me my people, I'll bugger off. You're like, why aren't you doing that then? He's not done it. He's helped you. He's not done it. He's literally not a threat apart from Spock going, here's our greatest adversary. Like, go away, Spock Prime. Bugger off. We don't need you. He seems fine for now. Everything's... If you hadn't have interfered, everything probably would have been fine.
I like how... I think Matt brought it up that at one point it makes Star Trek redundant because, isn't it, Khan beams himself up across the galaxy to another planet. So why have spaceships?
Khan has a personal transporter, so why'd you have starships? Like, okay, so you've ruined Star Trek. And then Bones at the end is like, well, I managed to cure death with this radioactive super blood. And you're like, so you've cured death and you don't need starships, which is the entire thing about Star Trek is like concepts of human mortality in the greater universe and understanding humanity's place amongst these, incredible variety of space creatures and different species and all this kind of stuff. Oh, we just teleport everywhere, it's fine. Like, what? That's universe breaking. That's mental.
That completely ruined Star Trek Into the Darkness to me. Once I was watching it today, I was like, well, Matt's ruined this film for me.
Matt does that a lot.
And
He's
I
good
used
at
to
that.
quite enjoy it. But then I thought, when they, like, the Star Trek Big Bad ship, they just designed a bigger, badder Enterprise. All the things they could have designed, they're like, let's just do that, bigger and blacker. Perfect. We're done.
All they really needed to do in this movie was just have the start of the war with the Klingons, essentially.
They were right there, Rich.
They were there.
They were there. They had it right there. It's so obvious.
It just had to be Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, but with Klingons, essentially.
Klingons on horses with machine guns.
Yeah.
Sign me up. Yeah,
Done.
exactly.
I would have been okay with Khan, but a bit of the long game, like put him in slightly as a figure, like he's not a good guy, I don't know.
So and this is our speciality at Sequelisers, as you know. I have thought about this, and if you're gonna cast Benedict Cumberbatch as John Harrison, just have him be John Harrison for this movie.
Yeah.
He's John Harrison the whole time. Not a word is said about Khan Noonan Singh. There's no Spock Prime stuff. There's none of this, that guy looks like that guy, because he fucking doesn't, first of all. Yeah. He's not going to recognize him from timeline to timeline. It's like, right, okay. And just have like, oh my God, they got Benedict Cumberbatch. He's a new member of the crew on the Enterprise. This is amazing. And then you reveal him as Khan and he betrays the ship in the third one. That is how you do Khan in an interesting way that isn't just redoing Wrath of Khan. And I hate the problem we run into with so many sequels and so many reboots is that they retread the first one. I know you guys have talked about this on the show as well, with everybody's worst sequels. Like, you take the first one and just like do it a bit worse, and you're just really lazy about it, or you undo some of the stuff from the first one and just ignore some of the continuity and the canon and stuff.
Is when they make the first one worse.
That's the cardinal sin of a bad sequel. Yeah, that is the worst.
They damage the first one.
And they do that in this one, where it's like, okay, cool, we've set up this lovely universe and, we've got Khan stuff. Like, okay, you've revealed Khan, so we know where this is going. Oh, no. He kills Kirk this time. Like,
oh, I forgot about that bit.
You've done it again, you geniuses. What brilliant marketing and brilliant... Orsi, Kurtzman, fucking Lindelof.
The Quinto shout-out is just the worst thing in this movie.
Khan! Like, one of the most iconic things in all of... People who've never seen a Star Trek episode or film know Shatner's Khan kind of thing. And as hammy and ridiculous as William Shatner is, that's an iconic moment in cinematic history, let alone Star Trek history. The hand thing. They do the hand thing. Like, we know. You don't need to do it again. You're just, it's so lazy and rubbish. Oh, I hate
the whole reason that Wrath of Khan works so well in Star Trek 2, and what they completely missed out on this, is that as soon as everyone sees Khan, they know who he is, and they are scared shitless.
Because he's from an episode of Star Trek beforehand.
Because they've seen him before.
And he's like, I'm about to annoy some Star Trek fans here. He's like, the World War III has happened or something, and he's like a super soldier, blah, 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 blah. He's from Earth from like the 90s, basically, when World War III happens in the original Star Trek timeline. Don't ask. And so he's this infamous, incredible, like legendary figure to be feared. And they're like, and you can't miss him. He's got like his exposed chest and this giant flowing locks of white, terrifying hair and all that kind of stuff. He's a powerful, he's not Benedict bloody Cumberbatch. And there's no setup. You could have done that, and you could have even done like I fucking hate the cold open of this film, by the way, where they just destroy that entire civilization because fuck it, why not? Yeah. Oh, it drives me nuts. Have a cold open with Khan on Earth, like 30 years, 130 years prior or whatever it is, and do it that way and set him up, and he goes under the pseudonym of John Harrison. And you don't even need to do the John Harrison reveal. Get rid of that entirely. That's a moot point. Have him be Khan from the start, but set him up. Have the cold open be him being terrifying and being a badass in the opening moments. You don't even see the Enterprise until they do the Into Darkness fade in, and then there's the shot of the Enterprise, and it's Star Trek again kind of thing. Have a dark, terrifying opening to set up your villain. That's such a common opening scene. Is
simple, isn't it?
You got to set up a location, set up a character, set up a villain, like get people invested in this terrifying villain. They do absolutely none of that and expect you to care about him an hour and 10 minutes into the movie because Leonard Nimoy's on a fucking Zoom call saying... He's right scary, he is. He's a wrong in him. Keep an eye on him.
How would you feel about a Batman Rises kind of ending? Like the reveal of Robin. Like it's John Harrison putting his details in like Starfleet computer and like any other names and be like, oh, well, my friends used to call me Khan. And then it ends.
See, that's how you set up the third one. If that is the ending of Into Darkness into the third one, because I actually really, really like that ending.
Oh, wow.
Of Dark Knight Rises, if Robin wasn't such a shit character who kills a bunch of people with guns and then goes, oh no, I don't like guns. And like, well then why did you shoot a bunch of people with guns? You're a cop. Like, what is going on? Dick Grayson is my all-time favourite comic book character. Nightwing is my all-time favourite comic book character. I like the story of him growing from little gymnast in his pants hanging out with Batman and like dweeby little sidekick to being his own character and now being like one of the leading characters in the DC universe and getting his own show with Titans and becoming this like sex symbol and all this kind of stuff. Like Dick Grayson's growth as a character is so fascinating to me and what separates him from Bruce Wayne and all this kind of stuff. They do none of that shit in Dark Knight Rises. I'm like, okay, cool. Yep. He's just a kid from an orphanage and then like, well, what's your real name? Oh, I guess you can call me Robin for no reason. Okay, cool. And it's exactly the same as Khan, because she doesn't know what Robin means.
Yeah.
And he says, like, well, I don't like my name, and Robin. Like, she's supposed to go, oh, like the Batman sidekick. Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. Maybe you'll be the next Batman. And they're all supposed to go, oh, Khan, oh, he's a big scary bad guy. He's the villain. Oh, my God, we're all terrified. But nobody has any context for this because they don't set up the characters properly.
I think it was a Marvel film. That's how they would do it.
100%. Yeah. Anger all the DC fans by going, well, if we did it with Marvel.
I don't mean to be that guy. I like both of them. There's room for everyone. They're all winners to me. But Marvel's better.
This is why we're friends. Yeah. This is the bonding experience right here. Yeah. Rich, you go. You're terrible. Planet of the Apes.
It's fine.
No,
problem.
You're done.
Nice.
It's the Jack and Dave show now. I'm sorry.
So, what is the sequel that surprised you the most?
Surprised me the most? Ooh.
Yeah, either you thought it was going to be really bad and it was actually quite good.
Going in and think, oh, the first one's kind of rubbish, but this one's, oh.
I'm trying to think whether it's like second one is noticeably better than the first one. I think it's because my background's in a lot of video games and stuff rather than films. That happens a lot in video games because they kind of set up the initial kind of like, well, we're still like working out the kinks and trying to work out how this all works. And by the second film, we've ironed out a few of those kinks, and now it actually works properly and it plays properly, and we've had time to write a story and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think if there's an equivalent of that. Obviously, in sequels in cinema and stuff like that, I think of plenty of ones that are worse and like surprisingly bad. My
doesn't
other
have to
one
be that the first one was bad and that the second one's even better than the first one, but just that you'd heard that it was really bad, and so you kind of put off watching it, and then you watched it and were like, oh, actually. So for us, like Dave, like Psycho 2 is a really good example. Yeah. Because literally, as soon as Jordan King, who came on our show, who was like, my favourite sequel is Psycho 2. Both Dave and I were like, what? Is he mad? That sounds awful. And then we watched it and we were like, this is really good.
Really enjoyed it.
This is actually very surprisingly good.
Because it did something different. It was a bit more fresh. Also, my example is, and this is a bit of a batshit crazy one, Blade Runner 2049, because I'm not a massive fan of Blade Runner.
I heard you talk about this on the podcast, yeah. Oh, God. I think one that surprised me the most, that the fact that it existed and just like confused me at the time was kind of my other option for the most disappointing one, which is Matrix Reloaded, because
That's a really good example.
the first Matrix is just seminal, important cinema, like undeniably influential and important cinema. And then Reloaded is just a bunch of nonsense and underground sex raves and jargon rubbish and a bunch of CGI bollocks fighting that looks terrible and looked terrible then and looks worse now. And between Reloaded and Revelations, whatever the hell it's called, coming up to Resurrections, it's like you've burnt this bridge, Wachowskis. I'm sorry. You haven't made a good film since The Matrix, I would argue. So it's like, you've made one good film in your entire career. I don't like Speed Racer. I think Jupiter Ascending is terrible. Like, they've made a lot of bad films between them over the years. I thought Sense8 was okay at best.
He loves it.
I love it.
Of course.
Yeah,
you like Planet of the Apes by Tim Burton. I don't trust you anymore, Rich. After that opinion, I've never met anyone who likes that movie. Never. Sense8, I'll be like, oh, cool, yeah, sure. If you like Sense8, no problem. It's like a 6, 7 out of 10 for me. Like, yeah, it's fine. It's good. Yeah, whatever.
Well, the way Rich talks about it, it's masterpiece.
I love it. I absolutely love Sense8. I think it's great.
Never seen it, so I can't join in this
Don't
argument.
bother, Dave. You'll be fine.
Watch it, Dave, and then tell us what you think later.
There you go. But yeah, Matrix Reloaded, it was just nothing. First of all, like, they're making a sequel to The Matrix. Why are you making a sequel to The Matrix? Just leave it. It's fine. Even back then, like, you know, I definitely didn't see it in the cinema. I was too young. I must have been in my early teens when I saw the first Matrix, and it, you know, had that mind-blowing moment of all the slow-mo and all the action and all the cool lore stuff and the agents and the suits and all that kind of stuff, and building this outer world and inner, like, intellectual sci-fi kind of stuff is like my absolute favorite genre, where you come out wondering like what's real and what's not, and all that kind of stuff. Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049, perfect examples that you come out thinking like, so were they good characters? Were they androids or robots? Or can they have a soul? Does that matter? What is a soul? What is humanity? All this kind of stuff. And The Matrix does a brilliant job of that, because you get like sentient programs and stuff, arguably, like trying to work out who's who and who's on what side. And then they're like, yeah, cool, we have invisible vampire people who are also programs. What? Yeah, they've got white dread. They're like albino invisible spirit walkers, and then there's a group of Monica Bellucci's like a hacker vampire for some reason. I don't know what's going on. I'm like, neither am I. And the whole architect thing and just the ipso facto come see come sa blah blah blah, half of it's in Latin and doesn't make any sense. It does make sense if you actually sit down and like break it down sentence by sentence. What he's saying makes, well, ergo and therefore this thing and this thing and this thing, and it's like, I know you're talking about like an infinite loop of Neos and all this kind of stuff, and that does end up making sense, but Reloaded just went off the rails, and then the third one went further off the rails and just becomes a big lazy Christ analogy, and you're like, okay, cool, whatever. And then fingers crossed for the fourth one, because it could be really interesting. Like, so judging from what I've seen of that trailer, like they could be it's proof that Neo is not the only one, and he's back in the loop of the loop that is the world of the Matrix and that whole thing, and he's going to be one that's going to try and break the cycle, which he tried to do before, but clearly it didn't work. Or did it? Is this the original Matrix we know? Is this a new Matrix? Is that the same Trinity who's been mind wiped? We don't know. It's all these questions. It could go either way, but I have no hope for it. Basically, I'm going in with a lack of optimism because of Reloaded. Reloaded killed all of my optimism for anything Matrix related. I love the Animatrix. Some of the games are great, but Reloaded and Revolutions, I always get that around the wrong way. Just terrible. I want to say Revolution. Revelations makes more sense because it's all Bible-y and stuff. Yeah,
but I think that's what a lot of people are confused with.
Yeah, it's those two are not good. And I remember going into Revolutions. Yeah, it is Revolutions, not Revelations. And Resurrections is the fourth one.
Yeah, Resurrections.
Well, Revolutions is the looping of the timeline of the cycle and stuff, right? It's all.
Oh, right.
And Resurrections is the multiple Neos being resurrected across the different timelines and stuff, I assume. Exactly. Yeah. The fact
I'm
that you
lost
just went,
already.
Exactly.
So if the new one's good, it's going to be a surprise, isn't it? That's what we're saying.
That's it.
We'll
yeah.
go in
if you ask me,
disappointed.
if you ask me this question, and by the end of the year, by Christmas, I'm gonna be like, I mean, the fourth Matrix was really surprisingly good. Who
Yeah.
knew?
What is your dream sequel?
I'm going back another year. So I've gone 2014, 2013, 2012. I promise I didn't do this on purpose. You know, this is my early 20s. So this is like the decade that I switched on as like a real hardcore film fan and all this kind of stuff.
It was your awakening.
2012. Exactly. Yeah.
We've all been.
I was unplugged from the Matrix and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, exactly. I want to talk about 2012's Dread, because I think it's one of the best films of the last decade. I'm just going to put that out there right now. I think it is a masterpiece, and I am heartbroken that we will never, ever, ever get a sequel, despite how many Blu-rays and DVDs the fans have bought over the years trying to resurrect it, like people did with Family Guy and Futurama while it was on TV and getting cancelled and then resurrected again. Speaking of resurrections. But we're never going to get another Dread. It made no money. It was incredibly troubled production. And the producer, Adi Shankar, said he's done multiple interviews saying, like, this is never going to happen. There's no way. You would need to fund it yourself and somehow get Carl Urban and Olivia Thirlby and Wood Harris and Lena Headey and people. Obviously, some of those characters die, spoiler, but get those people of those caliber to come and be your independent production somehow. It's never going to happen in a million years. And that breaks my heart because I love Dredd so much. I grew up with 2000 AD and reading Judge Dredd comics. For the listeners out there, I'm wearing a Judge Dredd t-shirt right now as a bit of a tribute. And it's like, this was the film I've been waiting for. After the 1995 just mediocre pile of just comedic half-assed bollocks that is the Stallone and Schneider movie.
Yeah, okay.
Please don't tell me you like the 1995 one.
I've got a soft spot for it because it's so bad it's good kind of thing.
See, this is where you can go off, Dave.
No, I think it's
like
terrible.
me again, because I don't like
then
it.
take you both.
No, I think it's terrible, but somehow I can
Starting a
sit there.
rivalry with the whole show.
I quite enjoy it for being bad, but I agree, it is a puddle of shit.
The costumes are kind of amazing, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
so comic but accurate with the giant eagles on the shoulders and all this kind of stuff. That would never fly in the, like, down-to-earth, gritty... I hate to use the phrase dark and gritty, but that's kind of what Dredd is, and that's kind of become this, like, uncomfortable phrase to be using in cinema these days. But, like, that, to take Dredd and really dial it down from all the wacky stuff that 2000 AD does.
Yeah.
Because 2000 AD, for listeners out there who don't know, is a comic book series that's been running for like 50 years at this point, or something like that, since the 70s. And it is just mutants and aliens and satire and parody. It's like Monty Python meets Star Wars meets all kinds of weird stuff mashed into one. And sometimes it's like really dark and gory, and sometimes it's really silly and funny and has Nigel Farage and Donald Trump in it and stuff, but they're called Bilious Barrage instead because copyright and libel and stuff. And it's like, how do you turn that into a film? It's like day in the life of a judge. Just make it super small scale. The entire film is set in one building. There you go. Like,
I have to be
by
honest.
Jove,
When Dave said this was your dream sequel, I did think he meant the '94 version. I was like, really?
Yeah, I'm bringing back Stallone. 26 years later? Yeah, brilliant.
He would still do it as well, I think.
Yeah,
He'd love another crack at it.
He probably needs the money, doesn't he, old Sly?
And I also thought I'd seen this movie. I thought I'd seen Dredd, but I hadn't.
Oh, wow.
So I got
Rich.
to watch it for the first time.
Right. Hold on. Stop the presses. Stop the
I'll
podcast.
sit back for a
Rich,
minute.
what did you think? Yeah. What did you think, Rich? Tell me more.
I liked it.
Okay.
I don't think I liked it as much as you. I think.
Brilliant.
I don't think many people like it as much as I do. To be fair.
No, I think Dave does. I think Dave loves it.
I loved it. I can't believe that. There's never been a sequel. It's just...
It's mad.
What I really like about it is I really like the fact that they got to use slow-mo with an actual point to having slow-mo.
Clever, isn't it? Yeah.
That's good. I don't know. I felt like there was... It deserves a sequel. You're right. I think there's more to the universe.
Yeah.
You know, there's definitely more to be
there's
said.
so much
felt
more
like
to
it
the
was
universe,
first, it felt like the first part of a trilogy or the first part of a series. You know, it felt like the setup. I mean, I definitely enjoyed it. I definitely liked it. There were bits just like, no, it's just action, blowy up stuff, that kind of...
It's so much fun, Rich.
Out of action.
Is it Carl Urban? It's not Keith Urban, is it? It's Carl Urban.
No, it's Carl Urban. I had that conversation with my wife yesterday too, where she was like, I get confused between Keith Urban and Carl Urban. Who is who?
We don't need Sylvester Stallone. We need Keith Urban's Dredd. That's what we need.
He's so good as Dredd. He's
really good.
You gotta go firm then, rookie.
Apparently, that voice really tore up his vocal cords as well, because he's Kiwi originally, I think. Like, that is nowhere near his natural speaking voice. And obviously, we talked about Bones just now in Into Darkness. He's Bones, and he's kind of doing this gruff American voice because he's doing an impression of Bones, basically. So it's like, yep, you're doing the McCoy impression from back in the day. Like, okay, how the hell are you going to do Dredd? I'm going to talk like this the whole time. I am the law. Mama is not the law. Like, apparently he would just be like coming out of character as soon as the shot ends. He's like, oh, thank God for that. I'm back to being Carl Urban again. You're like, oh, thank God. Like taking the helmet off and be like, fucking hell, I'm so sweaty. Sylvester Stallone takes the helmet off in 10 minutes, I want to say. It's like the first 10 minutes. And then he's like, whip off. And apparently, again, blah, 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 disclaimers, allegedly, etc., to cover ourselves legally. Apparently, that was Sylvester Stallone's idea because he was too big of a star to hide his face.
Probably true.
That was his ego being like, well, I'm Rocky, man. I'm Rambo. Like, you're gonna cover this face? Like,
this is what they're paying to see.
And that's why Stallone could never be the Mandalorian.
There you go. Exactly. The Mandalorian's a perfect example of a similar kind of lone wolf kind of isolated character with his helmet and really, really into his rules and his regulations and his ideals and his ideologies and bordering on religious kind of stuff, because Dredd, the character in the comics, is a fascist. Like, there's no are we the baddies thing about this. He's a totalitarian, murdering, all-powerful police officer in the not so distant future. And it's like, he's very clearly a terrible person in the comics, but he's fighting even worse people in a lot of ways. And, you can take that whichever way you want, depending on how you lie politically and stuff, and saying like, police need more control, police need less control, all this kind of stuff. Originally, because it's a British comic based on like American satire, it's all the Brits going, God, you Yanks are bloody mental. You've all got all your guns and all your cops have guns and you're all, cops are on the streets with the guns and stuff and all that crazy stuff. It's like all commentary on that coming through to like, Reagan and Thatcher in the 80s and all this kind of political stuff. They pretty much strip that all back, and I think that's for the better. I think it's very difficult to make sci-fi that isn't political, because the state of the world, if you're going, especially if you're doing like dystopian future sci-fi kind of stuff, the state that your world is in is a political statement, whether you like it or not. Like the fact that this is a world that is controlled by judges or there's like an 86% unemployment rate and it's illegal to be homeless and all this kind of stuff. They're political and social issues that are being like, homelessness is a huge problem in the UK and the US and around the world and stuff like that. And this film mentions it and is like, you better move or you get crushed. And he just gets crushed. And it's like, okay. That he's just like another number, another statistic. Homeless people aren't people in Mega City 1 in America, in the cursed earth. Like all this kind of stuff. It's like, it's such a dark, horrible timeline that I can kind of see us slipping into with the political leanings that we're heading with the way our country's going. And thankfully, America seems to be swinging back the other way a little bit with Biden instead of Trump getting in and all this kind of stuff. But I'm getting off topic. I'm going off on political rants. I know, I'm sorry.
Is there scenes that you really enjoy that makes Dredd special? And do you have plans for your future Dredd sequel?
I absolutely do, yeah. I don't think of a particular scene. I think the minigun scene.
Oh, yeah.
Where he is just running down that hallway and it's just tearing through and the whole...
Chopping bodies in half. It's just...
Chopping bodies in half and stuff. Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, it came around almost exactly the same time as The Raid and kind of got compared to The Raid. And I adore The Raid as well, for the record. I'm a huge martial arts film fan as well. But I think a lot of people kind of slept on Dredd. It's like, no, it's so different. This is the action. This is what it could be. Even the moment with like okay, hard shot, and the gun goes blip.
Yeah.
You're like, what does that do? Incendiary fire, and it melts the guy's face off, literally. You're like, oh my God, they're not messing around here. And yeah, that moment where the like aerial shot of all the way down through the mega skyscraper that is Peachtree's, and you just see this and them wheeling out this like tank of a gun that's on this like train cart thing. Like, what does that do? And they hear the of it like winding up first, and then the building gets cut in half, and then like running down again, slow motion, big explosions and stuff. It's classic action stuff, but that extra added weight and the shot choices and stuff is so well directed, and apparently directed by Alex Garland, not by Pete Travis. Quite controversially, because Pete Travis apparently had a lot of creative differences with Garland and a lot of the other team members, and Garland was originally the writer and producer. He's the director of things like Annihilation, for those out there who might recognize them. Like, oh yeah, Alex Garland, yeah. He's one of my favorite creators, writers, directors, all that kind of stuff. He did a bunch of other fantastic sci-fi stuff. Go and check out Alex Garland stuff. From writing 28 Days Later to directing and writing Ex Machina, Annihilation, and then being involved in Dredd. Apparently he basically was the creative hand guiding this whole thing and pointing it in the right direction. The visual effects are fantastic. Like you said, the casting is fantastic. Judge and the moment, I think definitely one of the standout scenes for me is when Anderson gets to shine, because she has her own series. Like Judge Anderson is its whole other thing in 2000 AD that's been running for 30 years by and in and of itself. She's not just Dredd's sidekick in the comics, if that makes sense. And when she kind of like finally takes control, when he's like, I'm getting in your head and I'm gonna mess with you and all this kind of stuff, she's like, oh yeah, cool, I can mess with you too, I'm a psychic. And basically, yeah, destroys this guy's mind by mentally ripping his dick off. You're like, wow, okay, that's a thing. That is terrifying, but amazing. And she comes out as, this such a kind of seemingly meek character compared to Dredd, who is just this force of nature and law who never smiles, just has that constant grimace on his face, that just a chin of a man and nothing else. Yeah. And she's supposed to be the humanity, like she's the surrogate audience member for this whole thing, seeing fresh out of the academy, is she gonna pass or fail and become a judge in this whole thing. And that moment where she steps up and is like, I've got powers. Like, I'm not wearing a helmet for a reason because I can do some really cool, powerful stuff. And she fights back against Kay and really like messes him up. It's brilliant stuff. And I think Olivia Thirlby is fantastic as well.
Yeah, I enjoy it.
What I really like about some of the best thing, I think Lena Headey is brilliant. And I
Mama's
think
amazing.
Her character of Mama is so vicious. And I think you sort of said it earlier, is that Dredd is awful, and he only gets away with being awful because the people that he is fighting are even worse.
She's worse, yeah, exactly.
My God, she is worse. So for people that haven't seen this, it's old enough movie now that we're gonna, we're allowed to do spoilers. It's within our rules.
Unless it's lost.
It's not 10 years old, by the way.
Is it not 10 years old yet?
2012.
Man. Okay,
it's 9 years old. You're pushing your luck, mate.
It's old enough. It's 9 years old. We're okay. There's a drug called slow-mo that you get it in like an asthma inhaler by the look of it, but essentially it makes everything go a lot, like slow-mo, like everything's slow. And what she does is, to these guys who've been dealing on her patch, is she gives them slow-mo, skins them alive, and throws them off of a building. And this building is, 190 stories or something ridiculous? It's
near enough 200 stories.
A mega skyscraper. So they must have felt like they were falling after being flayed for hours. Mm-hmm. And that is horrible.
Yeah.
You work out how violent it's going to be,
yeah.
literally maybe in the first 10 minutes when that guy gets hit by the car, and you think, that's what kind of film I'm in now. This is how gruesome it's going to be, because he hits him, the body explodes and blood goes everywhere. And you think, okay, cool, I'm into this. It's great.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people had the problem with, like you mentioned, the moment where they fall and it takes a long time in their mind because of the slow-mo and stuff. A lot of people were like, well, why did Dredd do that to Mama at the end when he pushed her off and stuff? Like, that seems weirdly cruel for a guy who is just like, by the law, shoot and kill people. And I always interpreted it as like, well, she has a kill switch. She has a, if my heart stops beating, then the whole place explodes kind of thing. So if he's able to slow her heart rate down so the kill switch never notices, then she will fall far enough out of the range of the thing by the time she dies, and then it's problem solved. And I was like, oh, that's pretty obvious. But I've seen quite a few people be like, oh, I don't like that interpretation of Dredd as the character. And I'm like,
Dredd's a bad dude.
I mean, sure, whatever. Like, Dredd's a terrible, horrible person. Joseph Dredd is a monster. And yeah, he's kind of dialed down a little bit in this film, but he's still, take no prisoners, all that kind of stuff. He just chuck dudes off, just shoots dudes in the face. Oh, there's a bunch of drug dealers. That slow-mo scene where it's going through the guy's cheek and out the other side, and it's all in 3D slow motion. It's all this real gross body horror type stuff, and all the digital blood. I don't like digital blood, but it's still well done. Like all this digital blood, like flying towards the camera, because they really did shoot it in 3D, because Avatar came out a couple of years ago, and that was the done thing. That was the style at the time, as Abraham Simpson says.
So what would you do for the sequel?
How familiar are you guys with 2000 AD Judge Dredd?
I've played a computer game.
Okay.
I read a few comics when I was younger. But...
Judge Dead or something in it, as like a ghosty
Judge
thing.
Death.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, the Dark Judges, yeah. Not that, I think, because that was apparently Alex Garland's original plan, was to do Judge Dredd versus Judge Death, because he's such an iconic villain. He's from an alternate dimension, a skull-faced evil version of Dredd, essentially. He's an evil judge, and there's like half a dozen of them, dark judges, that are these like trans-dimensional vampires that are trying to destroy all of existence and all this kind of stuff. It's very big picture, cosmic, Grant Morrison style madness, that kind of stuff. Don't go that far, because I think you go from such a small scale. Like we said, it's in one building, this film, basically. You can't go from that to giant space vampires trying to destroy the universe. I think that would be too much of a leap. But I do think you need to set up the rest of the universe and establish what is outside of Peach Trees. My suggestion is an adaptation of the Cursed Earth storyline, which is one of the it's like basically one of the big first serialized Judge Dredd stories, because usually it was just criminal of the week, story of the week kind of stuff, and you would get half a dozen pages at a time in each issue weekly, and then he's going on adventures, you're learning about the world as you go, all this kind of stuff. And then they did Cursed Earth, which is where there is a outbreak of a virus, funnily enough, speaking in 2021, it's maybe a bit too topical for our liking, in Megacity 2, which is the one on the West Coast, whereas in Megacity 1, we're on the East Coast. This is New York and Washington and all that kind of stuff. They're going over to Las Vegas and California and stuff. The scientists in Megacity 1 developed the vaccine, but because, as established in the opening of Dredd, America is a wasteland. Like, the Cursed Earth is just radiation and monsters as far as the eye can see, basically. They send Dredd, because of his fantastic record as a judge, a couple of other judges, and there's like a character who's basically like this biker guy who's like, he's the best biker. He's been out in the wastelands before. He can kind of be your guide. Kind of like the Gollum character. Like, he's this weird, he's not a good guy, but he'll help you out kind of thing, because it's that or the ISO cubes, basically. So Dredd and a handful of other judges trek across the entirety of America and meet mutants, and this is the original comic. This is not how I'm pitching my film. I'm going to spin off into my film pitch in a second, but because they meet an alien-speaking aardvark character, and it gets 2080 is weird and wacky and quirky and not what we think we need from a Dredd sequel. But the premise is there.
Yeah.
It's Dredd. You've seen Megacity 1. You've kind of seen the poverty and the terrible things that happen in these mega skyscrapers and all this kind of stuff. Let's introduce the rest of America and see him traveling across from east to west. Send him out there on one, on the Lawbringer bike, and him and a couple of other judges send Anderson out there as well, because she's a mutant, so she can kind of relate to some of the other people out there, because in the Wasteland, basically everyone is a mutant and they have an extra limb or an extra eye or variations of psychic powers or like weird superpowers that don't make any sense and all this kind of quirky stuff. And I think if you ground that and basically make it like Logan, where it's this grizzled dude just trying to make it across this desert and survive, and you can get him pursued by the gangs that are mentioned. Funnily enough, the Angel Gang mentioned in the 1995 film are from Texas City.
Yeah, because it has the Cursed Earth in it.
It does, yeah. So you have Texas City there as well, and that is kind of like their refueling stopgap kind of thing, and they essentially get chased by Mean Machine and the Angel Gang, and like I said, the guys from the 1995 stuff. But I'm imagining them a lot more grounded and scary and creepy rather than wacky and a bit creepy. But you still have like cyborgs and big like Hulk-looking creatures, and these like to put it into perspective, there's a satanic dinosaur, a T-Rex called Satanus, because there's a Jurassic Park in 2000 AD's version of America that goes wrong and gets irradiated, so he becomes a sentient satanic T-Rex. I'm not saying you do that, because again, I think that's maybe a step too far. It's incredible and hilarious, but maybe a step a bit too far from the kind of very grounded reality that is the Dredd version of this story. But I think having Dredd going across the desert, encountering all these horrible gangs, like there's the leader of the Angel Gang, they're literally a family, like hillbilly kind of family, the Angel Gang. I'm imagining like Bryan Cranston as Pa Angel, like this paternal figure that is like, judges in my territory, I ain't dealing with that. And he sends out all his family, and Mean Machine's there. He's like half cyborg, big, like crazy, hunting down the judges.
Like Red State.
A little bit. Oh, Michael Parks is again, before he passed away, Michael Parks would be a fantastic choice. And yeah, get him basically doing his Red State character, but Pa Angel is basically this evangelical, terrifying, cult leader kind of character. Have them, it's kind of Mad Max Fury Road as well. It's like chasing across the desert, this big road movie kind of thing.
I like it. I like the sound of it.
Yeah, that would be my plan as a very big kind of open the world up a little bit. And I think maybe then, because it's modern films and you have to do a trilogy, right, guys? That's how it works, because everything's a bloody trilogy these days. Then you introduce the Dark Judges for the third one, and then you finish off the trilogy and you don't touch it again, kind of thing. That's when you go balls to the wall for the big finale, and then ta-da, maybe that's done, kind of thing. And I think now Alex Garland has directing experience. You can bring him on as a full-time director. He wouldn't, because apparently, like I said, the production was so troubled and stuff. Another person who was rumored to be doing it originally is Doug Jones, who I also really, really like as a director. The director of Moon, and unfortunately the director of Warcraft as well. He's also rumored to be doing a Rogue Trooper film that's in production, which is another 2000 AD product that is similar in tone to Judge Dredd and stuff. It's a bit more serious, a bit less wacky, full of aliens and mutants and stuff. It's a bit more kind of takes itself a bit more seriously. But he's rumored to be working on that stuff, and he was one of the original people involved in the pitch for Dredd in like 2005 when they first started, producers and executives coming up with the plan and stuff. So I think there's a few different ways you'd go with the director. Obviously, Carl Urban returns, because of course he does. He's fantastic. Yeah, I think it almost writes itself. I think you could really get away with something pretty simple and straightforward in terms of the road movie, but letting it build the world around them, and you learn more about the history of Earth and World War III and the apocalypse wars that caused all this huge nuclear wastelands and all this kind of stuff.
Would you accept an animated version of it with Carl Urban doing the voices and that?
Yeah, so there is a comic sequel to Dredd that it's fine. It's nothing special, unfortunately.
I love the way you say it's fine, but in a way that means it's not fine.
I just said, like, this is one of my favourite films, maybe my favourite film of the last decade. It's like one of my favourite films of all time. It doesn't live up to that level of hype or expectation. It's decent, it's good. Like, if you enjoy Dredd, you'll probably enjoy the comic, but like, it doesn't do anything particularly mind-blowing or interesting. It doesn't go out into the cursed earth. It kind of stays in Mega City 1 and is another kind of, oh yeah, this is kind of deleted scenes from Dredd, I guess. You go and see him solve some other crimes, and oh look, that's a reference to that thing from the original comic. Oh, they did that in that thing, and oh, there's Anderson again, cool. Nothing particularly interesting.
I mean, comics are cool, but you want some kind of audio anticipation that you like.
You want to hear that voice again.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, sorry, Carl. We want to hear the voice again.
Sorry, mate.
Before we wrap up, I have a little game for you two to cross over with Sequelisers.
Love it.
We have a little game we play that we introduced way back when. It's the Rotten Tomatoes game. Okay. And Rotten Tomatoes is a mess of a review aggregate site.
Oh, we know.
Giant Silent Pub reboot.
We talked about this on the live stream, didn't we, Rich? Yeah, it's 90-something%. Those percentages are the percentage of positive reviews, which is a 6 out of 10 or a 60% or more. It is not the aggregated score out of 100. It is the percentage of positive reviews. And usually what we do when we do this on Sequelisers, we have the good film, we have the bad sequel, or we have a trilogy or 5 films or whatever it is. And usually whoever's, done the pitch will turn around and go like, so guys, what's the highest rated, what's the lowest rated, what do you think it is scored on the critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, on the, as they call it, the patented tomatometer that is Rotten Tomatoes. So to you gentlemen of Unequal Sequel, what is the highest and what is the lowest rating for these 3 films, from Dread through to Into Darkness through to Dawn of the Planet of the Apes? Have some guesses for all 3 and we'll see how you guys do.
Okay.
Thought I'd bring a bit of Sequelisers signature style over to your show. So let's start off with Dread. Let's go chronologically from 2012. Dread, what do you think it is percentage-wise on the tomatometer? Any guesses?
Okay, I've written numbers down.
I think critic score. Are we doing both scores? Are we?
We'll just do critics for now. We'll talk about audience stuff, but let's just do critics.
73%.
I've written down 74%, Rich.
Really?
Yeah.
We're so in sync, Dave.
Amazing. There's a reason you guys are co-hosts. Then we go 1 year later, Star Trek Into Darkness on the tomatometer. What do you reckon?
I don't think enough people disliked it as they should have done.
I put 57%.
57
I think
from
higher than that. I think 80%.
Oh, that's a big difference. So considering you were 1% apart for the last one, that's a big
Rich
change.
ruined it.
That's not how much I like it, by the way, but I think that if I remember back, it didn't get a critical panning.
We have to make that caveat every time as well. Yeah. I was like, this is not what we think. We promise. It's not our opinion. We're just guessing critics' opinions. And then lastly, 2014's Dawn of the Planet of the Apes.
88%. I've gone quite high.
88 from Dave.
I think this will be the highest because, I think 90. 90% from Rich. Interesting. Oftentimes on Sequelisers we get a clean sweep for some reason. We get one person that gets them all right. That has not happened here.
Damn it.
Because of that 1% difference in Dread. So to reveal the numbers, Dave, you are closer with your 74 because Dread is 79.
Oh.
Pretty close, both of you. An audience score of 72 for the record. So again, You're pretty close to the audience there as well.
Yeah.
Rich, you were on the right track here with Into Darkness. That is an 84%.
No fucking way.
With an audience score of 89% on Rotten Tomatoes.
I am
shocked.
Not
Not enough people hate that film. They really should.
I know. And not enough people, I think, relate to Wrath of Khan and the whole thing. And
even if I knew nothing about Wrath of Khan, it's still a mess. It's still a mess of a film.
No,
anyway.
I think people see pop, whiz, bang, boom, it's Star Trek, who cares? They treat it like Star Wars. Like, yeah, it's big shiny lights and spaceships, who cares?
It is big shiny lights. Okay, this is the one that's going to shock me, isn't it?
Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Rich, you are spot on with 90%. So you were 2% off, Dave. Sorry. And funny enough, Dave, you nailed the audience score of 88%.
I am one of the people.
So you were both.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're a man of the people. That is what we've learned.
And I have a film ticket.
So, Rich, you win 2-1 there on the patented Sequelisers Rotten Tomatoes game.
Dave, you're so upset. Those were Jack Chambers' Unequal Sequels.
Another good one, eh?
Yeah. Awesome. I love those Sequelisers, guys, honestly. I know we say it a lot, but I really do. I think they're brilliant, and their knowledge of film is awesome.
It's incredible. They're just so, when they talk about film, they're so passionate and knowledgeable. It makes us feel quite dumb, doesn't it?
It does. It really does. And I genuinely want to make that Dredd film that he talks about.
Yeah, I still can't understand how we never got a Judge Dredd sequel, the new one, not the Stallone one. It makes me sad every day. And
the pitch that Jack did, that idea of like the travelling across the wastelands and stuff. I love that. I think that's so cinematic. It's such a great movie.
Yeah, that would be a
so
good
if
one.
anyone's listening, any producers out there, this is a movie to make.
Definitely. And we enjoyed Dawn of the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, I think even though I upset Jack a lot with my my non-hatred of the Tim Burton Planet of the Apes.
They're rubbish. It is a rubbish film.
I know it's rubbish, but I still like it anyway.
Yeah, and another person who hates
know why.
who hates Star Trek Into the Darkness, which now is, a few people are brought up for dislike and disappointing, and
it's not great, is it?
No.
It's a swing and a miss.
I don't want to watch that again if I can help it for a while.
No, I don't think we need to. Hopefully not.
I know it quite well now.
Yeah, it's all good. Well, I really enjoyed that. And for anyone listening, if you really enjoyed that episode, and you can go back and listen to the episodes with Tim and with Matt as well from the Sequelisers. I mean, even better, you can go listen to their podcast. I mean, I'm not pointing people away for our podcast, but their podcast is very good. I listen to it myself.
Yeah, so it's very professional.
It is, yeah. Very professional.
All three of them have very good podcasting voices.
Yeah, they do.
Radio
and they've
friendly.
got a really good Patreon as well.
Yeah, definitely worth getting involved. They're brilliant. Go listen to them and listen to us. Rich, you got anything to say about us? Nice things to say about us?
Well, always.
Oh, good.
We're very nice. Yeah, we've got more brilliant episodes coming up as well. So stick with us. Give us a little cheeky like, give us a little cheeky subscribe, because then you won't have to worry about missing any episodes. They'll come straight to you if you click that subscribe button. Also, you can get in touch with us on our socials. We've got Instagram at Unequal Sequel. We've got Twitter at Unequal Sequel. We've even got your cheeky emails, unequalsequel@hotmail.com. Yeah, I got it right. Yeah. So lots of ways to get in touch with us. Lots of ways to say what you think about the show. Yeah, just shower us with compliments, really. That's all we're after.
I really like compliments. I've got nothing else to say, Rich, so...
Oh, you got nothing else to say, Dave?
No.
Are we all done for today?
Just keep on listening to us. We got lots of good stuff coming. Listen to the extra episodes on Fridays. They're always dropping and always fun. And keep on listening. We've got some cracking stuff coming up. So that's goodbye from me and goodbye from him.
Bye!
See you next week. Have a good one.